The wind sweeps across a barren landscape, carrying with it the whispers of a river's ancient past. The sun glares down on cracked earth where water once flowed freely, and the smell of dry dust replaces the fresh scent of a living river. The Euphrates, a name that has echoed through human history for thousands of years, is vanishing before our very eyes. For generations it has been a source of life, a backbone of civilizations, a ribbon of blue winding through lands that gave birth to agriculture, writing, and cities. It fed the great kingdoms of Mesopotamia, it watered fields of wheat and barley, and it carried boats loaded with goods to distant lands. Yet now its voice is fading. Standing on its banks today is not like standing on the Euphrates of old. The river has shrunk into a narrow, struggling current in many places. Vast stretches of its bed lie exposed, dry and fractured like broken pottery. Once deep channels are now shallow pools. The people who have lived alongside it for generations look on with a mix of disbelief and dread. The river's journey begins in the snow-capped Taurus Mountains of eastern Turkey. Here in the silence of winter, snow gathers on high peaks, just waiting for the spring thaw to release it into rushing streams. For thousands of years, these melting snows fed the Euphrates, ensuring a steady, life-giving flow that would nourish lands far to the south. Yet now, even here at its source, the signs of change are unmistakable. Old shepherds in the mountains tell of winters that used to bury the land in deep snow for months. Now, the snow melts earlier and the streams run weaker. Springs that once bubbled with icy water are now dry holes in the ground. Climate scientists measure the snowpack and confirm what the locals have known for years: the mountains are losing their icy crown, and with it, the river's heartbeat. From Turkey, the Euphrates flows south into Syria. Once it crosses the border, the river spreads life into some of the driest regions of the Middle East. The Syrian city of Raqqa once thrived along its banks, the river serving as a lifeline for fields and orchards. But the dams upstream have changed everything. One of the largest, the Ataturk Dam in Turkey, is an engineering marvel. Yet it has slowed the Euphrates to a trickle for those downstream. In times of drought, the flow can be reduced to barely a quarter of its natural volume. Syrian farmers, who once grew wheat and cotton with ease, now find their land turning to dust. In Iraq, the final stretch of the river is perhaps the most tragic. This is the land of ancient Babylon, where the Euphrates once ran wide and strong. Today, the heat shimmers over dry riverbeds, and canals that once channeled water through the Fertile Crescent lie abandoned. The Shat al-Arab, where the Euphrates once joined the Tigris before spilling into the Persian Gulf, carries only a fraction of the water it once did. Salt water from the Gulf creeps inland, poisoning farmland that has been cultivated for millennia. It is here in Iraq that the prophecies feel most tangible. The Hadith speaks of the river uncovering a mountain of gold. Some interpret this not as literal gold, but as the treasures of the land, fertile soil, ancient relics, or oil reserves, becoming exposed as the waters vanish. Others insist the gold is real, waiting beneath the riverbed, a lure that could spark deadly conflict. Already, conflict over water has erupted in smaller ways. Disputes between communities over irrigation channels sometimes turn violent. Local militias have seized control of pumping stations. The scarcity has made water not just a necessity but a weapon and a bargaining chip. For the people living along the Euphrates, the changes are not abstract, they are daily struggles. In the Iraqi town of Ramadi, old men gather in the shade to talk about how the river once carried so many fish that you could feed a family in an hour's catch. Now, they say, you could fish all day and return home empty-handed. In Syria's Deir ez-Zor province, a farmer named Mahmoud walks his parched land, holding a handful of dry soil. My father grew wheat here, he says. My grandfather grew wheat here. I thought my sons would do the same. But without the river, this is nothing but sand. In some villages, people dig shallow wells in the dried riverbed to find what little water remains underground. The water is often brackish and unfit for drinking, but they use it to keep a few animals alive. In desperate times, even foul water becomes precious. Scientists warn that the Euphrates could lose more than half its remaining flow by the year 2040 if nothing changes. This is not just due to climate change, but to population growth and increasing demand from agriculture and industry. Each new dam, each new irrigation project upstream takes another bite out of the river's future. The geopolitical stakes are high. Turkey, holding the river's source, has the most control over its flow. Syria and Iraq depend on international agreements to secure their share, but such agreements are often fragile, especially during times of political instability. Analysts fear that if the crisis deepens, water could become the trigger for larger conflicts, dragging multiple nations into confrontation. The drying of the Euphrates also reveals something else: history itself. As the water retreats, archaeologists are finding the remains of ancient settlements long buried beneath the river. In Iraq, the ruins of old cities have begun to surface, their walls and streets exposed to the air for the first time in centuries. These discoveries are treasures for historians, but they come at a terrible cost. The river must die for them to appear. In some places, local rumors swirl about strange sights in the shrinking waters, sunken boats from wars long past, rusting vehicles, even bones. For communities steeped in prophecy, these appearances feel like omens, reminders that time is running out. The debate between believers and skeptics intensifies. Those who see the hand of prophecy in the river's decline point to the exact wording of Scripture and the uncanny timing of events. Skeptics counter with data, pointing to the chain of human decisions, dams, overuse, poor planning, that have led to this moment. Yet in the end, both sides are looking at the same dry earth, the same dying river, the same uncertain future. And what of the kings from the east mentioned in Revelation? Interpretations vary wildly. Some see them as literal armies that will one day march westward, their path cleared by the vanished river. Others read it as symbolic of shifting power in the world, a sign that great change is coming. Whatever the meaning, the imagery is powerful, a dried Euphrates as a stage for the final chapters of history. Even for those who do not believe in prophecy, the symbolism is impossible to ignore. The river that birthed civilization is dying. If humanity cannot save the Euphrates, what does that say about our ability to protect anything else? At night, the river is quieter than ever. Frogs no longer sing along its banks. The moonlight shines on pools of still water, disconnected from one another, like fragments of a broken mirror. Somewhere upstream, the gates of a dam hold back millions of cubic meters of water, while downstream, families ration what little they have. In the cities, people are beginning to speak of the Euphrates in the past tense, as if it were already gone. In the countryside, they cling to the hope that next year will bring more rain, more snow in the mountains, more mercy. But the pattern of the last decades offers little comfort. Each year is hotter, drier, and more demanding than the last. If the prophecy is true, then the drying of the Euphrates is only the beginning of a chain of events that will reshape the world. If it is not true, then what we are witnessing is still a tragedy, a man-made disaster that robs future generations of one of the Earth's great rivers. And perhaps that is the most haunting thought of all. Whether written in holy books or in scientific reports, the end of the Euphrates tells the same story. A story of limits reached, of warnings ignored, of a life-giving force slipping away while the world watches. The choice, if there is still one, belongs to us. But the clock, like the river, is running out.